Obviously, you just saw Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett for the interim title. Earlier, Topuria posted, I'm dealing with some personal problems, so I'm not gonna fight the first quarter. So the winner of Gaethje versus Paddy will be the interim title, and then they will face Topuria. Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes for the bantamweight title. That's a badass fight. O'Malley and Song Yadong. Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Derek Lewis. Arnold Allen and Gene Silva. Alexa Grasso versus Rose Namajunas. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Figueiredo. And I'm going to announce this for you. 1 week later, we have Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez.
Oh, baby, it's fucking horse beef. What is going on? Once again, man, I'm here to talk about these fucking barn burner fights that were announced. And like that's partially sarcastic, but partially very real. There are some awesome fights that were announced for UFC 324, right? But Gaethje versus Pimblett for an interim title is the most embarrassing matchmaking I've ever seen in my entire life. Neither of these dudes should be anywhere near a fucking title fight. The only reason why Paddy in general should be fighting for a belt is if it's against Ilya, because of the storyline between them, because of the beef, because of the potential build-up, right? That's the only reason to make that fight, because God knows that Paddy Pimblett has done absolutely nothing to earn himself a title shot. Old man Bobby Green, old man Tony Ferguson, fucking washed Michael Chandler. Don't give a shit. Justin Gaethje coming off another win over Rafael Fiziev. Don't give a shit. And I would like to speak on Ilia Topuria's statement real quick, because people will take this opportunity to call him a duck, and I get it. He was rage baiting people, talking about how he won't fight Arman, he wants to fight Paddy, whatever. He said the same thing about Max Holloway, ended up knocking out Max Holloway, right? So it's very easy to see that Ilia was very likely rage baiting, and he will fight Arman Tsarukyan. But in this particular case, I can't really shit on Ilia, man, because family issues are nothing to play around with. Family does come first, and I would show the same grace to anyone who puts out a statement like this, right? Ilia does say, I won't be fighting in the first quarter of next year. I'm going through a difficult moment in my personal life. I want to focus on my children and resolve the situation as soon as possible. I don't want to hold up the division. The UFC will make the matchups needed, and as soon as the matters are resolved, I'll let the UFC know, and I'm ready to begin my return. Now, listen, as I said, it's very easy to come at Ilia here and say that he ruined the lightweight division, but divorces, presumably that's what's going on here. If that is the case, right, extremely messy situation. I've experienced divorce, not personally, but secondhand with my parents and all that, right? It's no fun. It's very messy. So if there's any reason to take time off, aside from like because of an injury or like a death in the family, right, this is an extremely valid reason to take time off. So even though Ilia is not to blame and I cannot hold anything against him here, it does leave the lightweight division in a strange situation here. But why is Arman not fighting for the fucking title? Why is he not fighting for the interim strap? Did he not say that he was ready for January, and then this fight is made? The biggest joke of a fight I've ever seen. And didn't Dana White say this as well? Didn't Dana White say this about the Arman versus Hooker fight? That it was a #1 contender fight? Didn't he say that?
Dana, earlier this week, you scheduled Arman Tsarukyan to fight Dan Hooker in November.
Yeah.
And will the winner of that fight become the #1 contender in the lightweight division?
Will the number of that? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Dana.
You're welcome.
Paddy versus Arman would have made so much more sense. Or if we're basing it off of merit alone, Arman versus Charles Oliveira 2 would have made more sense in this shit. But Justin Gaethje was really able to strong arm the UFC at this stage in his career, right? He has one foot out the door. Who gives a shit if Justin Gaethje wins the belt? If Paddy wins the belt, it's great for promotion, right? He's British. Big British fan base, of course, will rally behind him. But like, of course, it would be like the most paper. Like as far as interim titles go, like interim title in and of itself is already kind of a paper belt. This would be the most paper of all paper belts. This isn't even a fight to determine who's second best in the division, or even like third best, I wouldn't say. This is a #1 contender fight at best. At best, and I wouldn't even put it at that. Arman Tsarukyan cleans both of these dudes out relatively easily, in my personal opinion. Arman Tsarukyan is a beast. His performance against Dan Hooker says everything, and I get it, right? He was out for a long time, and I was shitting on him for so long, right? Calling out Ilia, trying to rally for a title shot after sitting out for that long. But now that he came back and he won a fight, I can no longer say that. Arman Tsarukyan has put himself in prime position to be deserving of a title shot, and Dana White still refuses to give it to him, even though he's so much more exciting than a Paddy Pimblett, or even, I get Justin Gaethje, he's the violence guy and all that, but Arman represents the highest level in the division aside from Ilya. He's clearly the second best guy in the division, and the fact that we're not even getting a setup here for that fight is crazy. Arman should be fighting here. Arman should be fighting for the belt here. He would win this fight regardless of who was against, and that fight between him and Ilya is the best fight at 155, 100%, and now we are being robbed of that, because the winner of this fight will fight Ilya. And then when does Arman get to fight Ilya? When does Arman get to fight for him? It's fucking ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous, and I'm not even an Arman fan. I'm not at all. But we have to be objective, right? He's a spoiled brat, but God knows he earned his spot here. He 100% earned it, and he's been shafted by the UFC, and it's such a joke. What a way to start the UFC Paramount deal. What an absolute travesty. The fact that this is even put up as the main event too. You have Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes. Like, the return of Amanda Nunes, really? I understand that people don't really care about WMMA, but if there was ever a case to put a female title fight above a male quote-unquote title fight, right? It's, man, very generous to call this a title fight. It would be right now. Nunes versus Harrison should be the main event here, just to spite Gaethje versus Pimblett. What a joke of a matchup, where there's an interim belt on the line. Even Max Holloway versus Arman Tsarukyan would have made more sense in this, would have been more exciting on paper. This would have been more high level than this. Oh God. But I would like to just focus on my early predictions, talk about how these fights could possibly go, move away from some of the negativity, even though the main event here only deserves negativity. It makes no sense. I still can't wrap my head around it, but whatever. We'll leave it as it is. But as far as who I think will win that, I honestly believe that it's an easy win for Paddy Pimblett. I don't know if Justin Gaethje really has the power that people say he does. He throws a lot into his punches, but he's very weathered at this point. Paddy Pimblett does have a good chin. I believe he will grapple fuck the shit out of Justin Gaethje and probably sub him on the ground. Will probably put damage on him on the feet. Like, even though Paddy Pimblett is not a very good striker, he can still put damage on you, and he does have some decent weapons. Although I could see Justin Gaethje chewing up the leg, right? The leg kicks will be an issue for Pimblett, but I think we saw against Chandler that Pimblett is just so fucking huge for the weight class, and I believe he will make Gaethje look quite small in there, and I'm just not too sure that Gaethje will have much of an answer for the grappling of Pimblett, so I can most definitely see him winning that one, probably via finish, as I said. Now, when it comes to Harrison versus Nunes, I believe that if Nunes comes in here like 70% of what she was at her prime, I believe that she makes somewhat easy work of Harrison. Obviously, Nunes will have to watch out for the strength of Harrison and the submission threat. But I believe while this is on the feet, Harrison really has nothing for Nunes. As I said, as long as Nunes comes in here looking like a fraction of what she used to be, because I'm just not impressed with the fact that Harrison made easy work of Pena. I truly believe that Pena is one of the lowest level, probably the lowest level champion we've ever seen. So I'm not overly impressed by what she did to Pena, but she made easy work of her, which, in those types of matchups, you're supposed to make easy work of your opponent. Although I'm just not overly impressed by it. Personally, Nunes, I do favor here, but this one is very up in the air, but super interesting matchup, dude. And I just don't think it's possible whatsoever for Harrison to do to Nunes what Shevchenko did to Weili, right? There's not this huge size discrepancy between the two of them, at least I don't think that there is. So yeah, I'm predicting Nunes early, but I would like to see the way she looks physically leading up to the fight first. Then we finally have Sean O'Malley taking a step out of the title picture, which he shouldn't have ever been in to begin with, in my opinion. I know that he beat Aljamain Sterling and all that, but O'Malley's whole run was just very manufactured. So I like the fact that he is fighting someone as dangerous as Song Yadong, even though on paper I do think that this one does favor O'Malley quite heavily with his rangy striking style. Song Yadong has fucking T-Rex arms. It'll be very tough for him to land those boxing combinations against O'Malley. He'll have to press him against the fence and do his best work there. And O'Malley, with the footwork that he's shown, the stance switching, right? He's very, very tricky on the feet. As long as he stays mobile, I don't see how Song Yadong really has much success in the center of the octagon. I can see Sean just getting this one done with simple 1-2s, front kicks up the middle, leg kicks, right? Just a very, very simple game plan. Stay on the bike. Don't allow Song Yadong to land one of his big shots, because he is fast, right? If he is able to get in the pocket with Sean, I could see him cracking him, right? And if Song Yadong wins this one, I could definitely see it being by KO potentially. I just don't really think that Song Yadong on the feet will have much for O'Malley. I believe he'll have to wrestle quite heavily to get this one done. I can see O'Malley winning this one by KO, but who's to say how much damage those last 2 losses to Merab has really done to Sean O'Malley's confidence is yet to be seen. But Sean O'Malley can thrive in these type of like striker versus striker matchups. So early prediction is that I believe Sean O'Malley will get this one done, potentially by KO, but I definitely see this one as more of a decision victory for him. You know, Song Yadong is a tough dude, very, very hard guy to finish, granite chin by the looks of it, but seriously though, why is O'Malley not fighting Umar Nurmagomedov? I don't understand why that fight isn't being made. What is it, number 1 versus number 2? That would be the fight to make, right? If we're going based on rankings, that is the fight that makes the most sense. But obviously the UFC doesn't want to knock either one of them down a peg. UFC wants both of these dudes in title contention for obvious reasons. So put them up against opponents that the UFC believes that they will have a relatively easy time against. Makes a lot of sense. Although, man, Nurmagomedov versus O'Malley was right there to be made. It seems like a missed opportunity, but it is what it is. But as far as how I think Umar versus Figgy will go, I can see Figgy having a real hard time with Umar's speed on the feet. Absolutely. But when it comes to the grappling, right, Figgy has some tricks up his sleeve. He's very, very high level on the mat. But I think he'll struggle with Umar's size, right? He looks quite a bit smaller than even Peter Yan. I think Umar's even bigger than Peter Yan, right? So I don't know. I feel like Figgy will struggle everywhere this is, but Figgy always has that puncher's chance. We've seen Umar caught in multiple fights. He could be a little bit chinny, right? He could be a little bit chinny. He could be. So maybe he gets exposed here with some of that chinniness. But other than a puncher's chance, I see Umar winning this one with relative ease. But I could see a decision here for Umar, but relatively dominant. Cortez Acosta versus Lewis. Another fight for Cortez. I think it's like his 6th fight in the calendar year. That's just incredible and can only be respected. And plus he has that eye patch shtick as well, which is doing him wonders, man. He's showing personality now, and he's really putting himself in prime position for a title shot. Because people were talking about Lewis fighting Aspinall. So if Cortez Acosta beats Lewis, there's no reason why he should be denied a title shot, especially with that activity. Right? It should always, right? That activity should always be respected. And because of the way that Acosta Cortez is playing, or Cortez Acosta, whatever the fuck it is playing into Tom Aspinall's eye poke situation so well, an eventual fight between those two would be pretty awesome. It would be pretty awesome, right? He'd probably wear the fucking eye patch to the weigh-ins, to the press conference, and try and rage bait Tom Aspinall and his fans, and it would honestly be hilarious. So yeah, I look forward to that, and I do think that Cortez Acosta will probably beat Derek Lewis. Then Arnold Allen versus Jean Silva, bound to be a banger. Arnold Allen is extremely tough and fights at a pretty good pace. He's well-rounded. John Silva, big hitter, as we've seen, also well-rounded. This one will be a war. It'll most likely be a war. I can see Arnold Allen, being beat to a pulp in this one, but surviving. But it being clear that John Silva was the better fighter on the night. Like, I know John Silva got finished by Diego Lopez, but man, John Silva was looking good up to that point. Although he got caught, of course, right? He ran into a fucking spinning elbow, got way ahead of himself. And Arnold Allen, he had a really close fight with Movsar Evloev, who many people are arguing who should be fighting for the belt, the 145 belt at UFC 325, which we'll get into after we finish talking about these fights, right? But close only counts in horseshoes, right? It was a close fight, but he did lose the fight. I don't know, Arnold Allen, he seems to always be on the cusp of a title shot, but can just never break through. It also doesn't help that he's had to go up against Max Holloway and Movsar Evloev, as I said. And he's elite, but I do favor Jean Silva in this one. I'm going to say by decision. Lexa Grasso versus Rose Namajunas. Honestly, as much as Lexa Grasso is good, right, good boxing, and she has a win over Valentina Shevchenko, which ages very well, of course, I honestly favor Rose Namajunas in this one. I feel like she's just more well-rounded, is slick on the feet, and can tie up Alexa Grasso on the ground, I believe, too. Rose is honestly quite good. She's just fucking weird. And then Atiba Gauthier versus Andrei Pulyaev. Yes, Atiba Gauthier will probably win this one by KO. Maybe this will be the biggest test of Gauthier's career. On paper, it definitely is. However, Gauthier will likely knock this dude out, because I personally believe that Gauthier is not overhyped. He's a legitimate prospect with legitimate skills, and he's scary as fuck. So yeah, Gauthier by KO, most likely. But potentially the most controversial of all, right? I find it hard to imagine that any fight is more controversial than Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje for an interim title. Oh, goodness gracious, right? But Volkanovski versus Lopez too, right? Lopez is getting this shot off the back of a win over Jean Silva. Now, I get it. Diego Lopez, a big star, Right? He has the Mexican fan base behind him, Brazilian fan base behind him, fan-friendly style, super likable dude. I'm a huge fan of Diego Lopez, right? If I was to name my top 10 favorite fighters in the UFC right now, I would very much assume that fucking Diego Lopez would be in there, man, for a lot of us. And based on their first fight, right, we can expect fireworks in this one. But this comes across to me like the UFC trying their very, very best to get Diego Lopez as champion, right? Because just with his youth, his chin, and the power that he has in his hands alone gives him a chance here. I know that Volkanovski very clearly beat him the first time around, but there were moments in that one that spelled danger. And the UFC's throwing Diego Lopez back in there in the hopes, I believe, that he gets it done this time. Because there's no other reason to give him the fight. He lost to Volkanovski, and then he just beat Jean Silva. Was Jean Silva even a top 10 ranked guy when they fought? No, he was not. And he even got his first title shot after beating Brian Ortega, of all people. Like, trust me, guys, I'm a huge fan of Diego, as I said. But facts are facts. He arguably didn't even deserve the first shot off of merit, and he definitely doesn't deserve this shot off of merit. It has to be Lerone Murphy or Mobstar, and I'm fine with it not being Mobstar. I don't really give a shit. The guy doesn't fucking fight anyway. Having said that, I would still prefer the matchup over the one that we're getting, just simply because it's a fresh, intriguing matchup. But Lerone Murphy has been doing anything but sitting out. He knocked out in spectacular fashion, one of the best knockouts in years, quite frankly, against Aaron Pico, who the UFC wanted. Like, the UFC desperately wanted Pico to go out there and beat Lerone Murphy, and you know they would have given him the title shot off of that, right? He was already being spoken about as the next title contender. What, Lerone Murphy beats him, and he's not a title contender now? Even though he sparked him in spectacular fashion, it's insanity. And I can totally understand Lerone Murphy's frustration, and he's correct with this tweet, man. This sport ain't about the best fighting the best anymore, at least in this organization. And that's been made very, very clear. Because even though Diego Lopez versus Volkanovski on paper, even though we've already seen the matchup, of course this one on paper is more of a barn burner than Volk versus Lerone Murphy. But it's just a fresh matchup. Don't we want to see Volkanovski the champion against a fresh matchup rather than just recycled contenders over and over and over again? Like, Volk already did this shit with Max, man. He already beat Max 3 times. Now we have to see him fucking fight Diego Lopez again after he fought his ass off, man. Beat Father Time, went 5 rounds with Diego Lopez, took his licks, but still won the fucking fight. Well, Diego Lopez just has to go and beat somebody outside the top 10. He gets a title shot right away, even though there are contenders waiting in the wings who deserve it more than him. It just does not make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even seem to make sense to the champion Volkanovski.
Again, I thought, it was a Mobstar deserving. Lerone Murphy. I thought they were the 2 guys. They're the guys I called out. UFC really want Lopez. At least everyone knows they're in for a treat. With your Mobstars and Lerones, they're probably, they're more deserving. But are they going to bring a fight like Lopez would? I think the fans are going to appreciate the fight that me and Lopez are going to have.
Then we get Instagram posts like this from Diego Lopez, and I can't fault the dude for it. I get it, right? He's getting the shot. He is he's a very active fighter, right? I shouldn't even say pretty active. He's a very active fighter. Diego Lopez, he brings entertainment every single time, right? He's being given the shot again. Why would he complain about it? I totally understand. And he's not going to come out and say, yeah, Lerone Murphy, you're right. I don't deserve the shot. You should be getting over me. Like, that wouldn't make sense. Especially from a promotional standpoint, would make no sense at all. It would almost be as bad as Mackenzie Dern saying that she would not beat Weili Zhang if she had to fight her instead of Iverna Jandiroba. But what a way to kick off the UFC Paramount deal, right? What a beautiful way to kick it off, dude. Just 2 title fights that everyone's so excited about. Man, just straight scraps based off of merit, right? The best fighting the best. It's what the UFC's always been about, and clearly nothing's changed, right, guys? Right, guys? Nothing's changed. Fuck, dude. I'm so disappointed in these announcements. Just complete dog shit. I mean, we have Paddy Pimblett coming off of a Michael Chandler win and Justin Gaethje coming off a Rafael Fiziev win, fighting for an interim strap after Arman Tsarukyan is coming off of wins over Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker. I get Dan Hooker is just Dan Hooker, but he deserved the shot after the Charles win, right? And he was going to get it. Now he's won another fight, and he's still not getting it, dude. I understand a lot of people hate Arman Tsarukyan, but he's been done real dirty here. And I feel for the dude, man. Floyd, yeah, him less so. But Lerone Murphy and Arman Tsarukyan, dude, done completely dirty. Could not be more disappointed with these matchups. But I guess we've come to really expect this from the UFC recently, right? Going into a new deal, you think they'd fire on all cylinders, but man, just starting off with a fucking whimper. So fantastic stuff here from the UFC. But that does conclude my thoughts on these fights, man. I really, I know I uploaded another video earlier today, but I really had to get my thoughts out on this one too. But I appreciate you guys listening to my thoughts. I appreciate you guys watching. Let me know in the comment section below whether you agree, whether you disagree, whatever your thoughts are in general. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.